And then
Good afternoon and welcome into the Senate Committee on Government Operations Committee meeting of Tuesday, May 26, 2026. And in some fashion, this may be the last Tuesday of the biennium.
maybe.
So we got two charter bills to take up today. The first is H 954, an act relating to approval of an amendment to the charter of the town of Stowe. On the agenda for witnesses was Tim Devlin, our legislative counsel, and Representative Jed Lipsky, who's the sponsor of this. This has been modified, and I'm going to take it upon myself to walk us through the bill. It's a 2-page bill and fairly simple. House Ways and Means has amended this to the iteration that you see in your bill. So General Assembly approves this, just boilerplate, approves the amendment to town of Stowe. The voters of the town approved this on town meeting day this year, March 3rd, 2026. And Select Board is authorized to impose a 2% local options tax on sales, rooms, meals, and alcoholic beverages. Tax imposed pursuant to this section shall be collected and administered by the Department of Taxes. Subsection B, notwithstanding any contrary provision of Title 24 of any local option tax collected in excess of 1%. The 1% which pre-exists remains in place. And based on what we did earlier this session, 80% of that now is returned to the town Stowe, and the other 20% goes to the state. Is that not? I'm getting a note, Chris.
Not unless, yeah.
It's 75-25 that's right, at the moment. Okay.
Right.
This would change that to say 50% shall be paid to this is the mouthful, local option municipal transportation special fund established pursuant to Title 19, and then 50% to the town.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Senator.
just thinking that when you said it, I thought the first 1% was 75-25.
It
The
is
second 1% was 50-50.
correct.
Okay.
I thought that's what I said, but
You may have.
I just fumbled. Oops. I'm sorry.
have many, there are many things with Brian Collimer, but he just
Not a mumbler.
He is radio voice.
Local option tax authorized by the section supersedes any local option tax previously adopted and approved by the town. So I want to invite the sponsor of the original amendment, Jed Lipsky. And we have, again, a time constraint because we've got to be out of this room at 5 minutes of 2. And we have two charters to take up, this one being the first one. So Jed, welcome in. It's always good to see you. And if you could give us, well, you know what? Depending on how this eventuates, we may not need the town vote because it won't get, or it will get to the floor. I don't know how that's going to go. But you could provide us with that information, that would be great. If you can't, you can.
I believe it can.
Okay.
Senator Palmore, thank you for the record. Jed Lipsky, Lamoille 1, Stowe, and thank you, committee members. I'll be brief. And I could get exact numbers with regard to what the vote was. Before I get into that, I'll be brief. When this came off the wall in House GovOps Friday morning, was testimony I was not aware of. I happened to pass someone in the hallway, I'd say around 3 o'clock, coming out of House Ways and Means saying, "Hey, we just took up your bill." I said, "I thought it was in GovOps." "Oh, they passed it out this morning. You're going to be taking more testimony later this afternoon." So to say that it was a little startling, almost, I'll be thoughtful and say it was not considerate. Historically, sponsors of the bill at least get the courtesy of a notification. But it passed out as was proposed in GovOps. Ways and Means amended it from a 75-25 split to a 50-50 split. I was asked, and they had finished, and they apparently voted out 11-0 in that committee. And I went back down to the House GovOps, and they asked, well, how do my constituents feel about that? I said, I don't know if this is rhetorical, but how I know. 19% of the voters participated in the vote on an Australian ballot. I now have about an hour. And it's impossible to go through the voter list and ask. So anyway, they then brought it to the evening session. And again, I was asked to weigh in, and I articulated, I thought the protocol was poor and violently. So then when I went up, I asked for a recess, and I was told by the speaker and other leaders there that it died, or we agree. But I said, are you giving me no opportunity to propose counter possibilities like 70-30, 65-35? No, it's now where it's done. So I had reached out to the town manager. Said 50% of what originally would have been 75% is what I refer to as 2/3 of a loaf. 2/3 of a loaf. My humble life, half a loaf is better than no loaf. 2/3 is better than no loaf. But it was not what the voters had asked for. And I had no ability to speak how they felt about it. They did vote out. It was close to 8 o'clock Friday evening as the manager by ways and means. Then I reached out to Chair Collmore this morning and others. And so I'm here if you have questions. A little bit of a tough situation.
Yeah. And I sympathize, I really do. It's unfortunate that the process unfolded that way because it didn't allow you to check back with your constituents.
That's correct.
But,
Go ahead.
in all fairness, we have many charters where that changes. I mean, there are pieces that change during the course. I mean, once the voters voted, all they're doing is voting it to get, they voting the content, but they're also voting to get it to our process. And our process inevitably means things get changed. Not always, but some charters things get changed.
Senator Clarkson, thank you for that reality and truth. So, but usually there's a courtesy involved. But with that said, some background, I have had dialogue and knew that there were murmurings around the building that the ratio could change and would likely change if it passed at all. So I was not surprised. So, I was surprised in the House, those murmurings were from the Senate, with full transparency, which is important to me. Our former senator from Boyle County, Rich Westman, legislative breakfast and talked about, the challenges of the transportation fund and efficiency there. So with that, if there's any questions.
Do you have a notion of how much money we're talking about, the additional 1%? I've heard 3.1 million, I've heard up to 4 million. Basically, if it goes the full year, I think the 4 million is more of an accurate number. Total. Yeah, just that additional 1%. Yeah.
Well, I have some notes here, and I believe that so has long had look option tax of 1% on voter. meals, rooms, sales units in place, generating roughly 3 million a year. It's probably from last year. So our Stowe retains 75% of that revenue, or the state takes.
So your
25.
current 1% raise is about 3 million.
Right. So, and that's split, so
Yeah.
this would add,
You get 1.5 billion.
Yeah.
Additional.
Yeah, Senator Clark.
And Jed, if I may, how long have you had your 1%? Because you were part of the Gold Towns originally, you and I.
now, we were very early on the room and meals and alcohol 1%. And we use that mostly to fund capital bonds, some
That's my next question is what is it dedicated to?
in, the original 1%.
Yeah.
We paid for burying electric lines on Main Street.
Good.
Yeah, it was a big,
Right.
I don't want to call it PR, it was an enhancement, being the sort of the tourist epicenter of Vermont. It, and big, utility lines draping in front of the Stowe Community Church or the Akeley Building or the Green Mountain Inn, where people from all over the world can take pictures. I guess they have modern ways with the internet to erase power lines, but on their photos, but anyway.
Good for disasters as well.
But the first initiative, and this is significant to you, Senator Palomar, Chair Palomar. The ring, and I was
Well, you
along,
helped pay for the ring.
we committed, when we first, and the business community got behind it, committed for the 20-year bond to fund that through the local option tax, or maybe 350,000 a year for that. And that was it's now a serious community center, as you know, where homesteaders, locals from not just Stowe, but all over the Loyal region gather and always feel welcome. So it was a great investment. Then they added the buried power line, which enhanced tourist experience. And they did other sidewalk improvements, that lighting on Main Street, and it's quite an iconic Main Street. We're all very proud of it. So this second local option tax, now moving beyond the one. The sales tax, to your question, Senator Clarkson, I believe has passed 3 years.
And you're hoping to dedicate this new 1% to,
As you know, selectmen cannot sort of require future select boards, may have some flexibility. But many who voted felt it would enable the municipal general fund budget, whether for roads, bridges, sidewalks,
so more
to
infrastructure.
backfill our infrastructure, which, like most towns, is not being well funded. All towns in Vermont are in deep need for support there, and it would help reduce our property tax burden by adding this. And the theory on these second 1% is, in many cases, not all cases, maybe more than half of it would be generated by visitors or tourists, non-homesteaders. Sure. That's just a general.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think if you're the highest visited town, always season winter.
I don't know, the 26th most beautiful town in America might take.
Substitute the second tax then.
Well,
Stowe contributes more than any other municipality.
I'm just giving.
As I
Even
said,
Woodstock was right up there as well.
yeah, and by the way, I will compliment across the board architectural beauty of Woodstock. It's exceptional. It's not Vermont vernacular. It's
pretty
slightly more grand.
Thank you, Jess. We appreciate your taking time. Chris Roop's gonna join us from Joint Fiscal. It begins to look like we're not gonna have time to take up the Williston Charter in this particular segment. We may have to meet after the floor, or we could do it tomorrow, but welcome in, Chris.
Sure. Shout out to me, Senator.
Sure.
Meet here.
Unless you want to listen to what Chris has to say.
All right, I'll stay for a bit. I am,
Are you on the floor? I thought you were on.
we are, and I
You
walked
are
out
not.
to be.
You have recessed to caucus.
You
I'm not-
recrossed to caucus. So you get
I
to go
walked
caucus.
out and they were,
Yes, I have a text message from a fellow House member that says they are recessing to caucus. They will return at 1:15.
okay, then I'll enjoy the company. The softer chair.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Chris Roop, Joint Fiscal. I'll be pretty brief. I emailed you all a copy of the fiscal note for the charter amendment for Stowe H 954. I'll just give you the highlights verbally, as Representative Lipsky had mentioned. Our estimate that my colleague Ted did, working with some tax department data, is since there would be a partial year of implementation in FY 27 due to timing reasons, it would likely go live October 1. There would be roughly $3.2 million total generated in that first year. Then a full year of revenue would be close to 4.9 million in FY 28. So that's the total. So Stowe would get half of that. The other half, the only real other thing I wanted to draw you all to is that the other half goes to a new fund that is proposed to be created in the Senate's big bill. It does not go through the current pilot fund construct that the 1% local option tax currently goes through. This second 1% specific to Stowe would go, half of it would go to the town, half of it would go to the local option municipal transportation special fund, which is a new thing that would be created in the Senate's budget. Senator White might remember this from the T-bill that came out of Senate Transportation, but the thinking is this money that goes into that special fund would then be appropriated in the budget and authorized in the T-bill each year to go back out to towns for town highway aid. And it could also be used for grants for class 2 roadways and structures. So 50% of the second 1% would stay in Stowe. The other 50% would go to this new special fund that would then be appropriated every year in the budget to go out to help towns with transportation.
So again, we've got a couple of questions. Mine is there any set way to determine the proportion by which each town would receive some of that
There
money?
is, these are all existing programs in statute, and the town highway aid program is formula based on road mileage. So,
Okay,
of the total amount that is appropriated every year for town highway aid, 6% of that is distributed based on what percentage of class 1 roads your town has. 44% is distributed based on class 2 roads, and 50% is distributed based on your class 3. So it is a well-established formula
Okay.
that goes out to every town.
Senator White,
I just want to say, yes, I do remember this from the T-bill, and that's why I'm so in favor of it, is because it's not, as Chris described, just going back to the town of Stowe. It's also helping to manage our increasingly depleting T funds. So if we don't support the Stowe charter, we're going to have to make changes, in my understanding, to the T-bill.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
They
There's nobody.
they are complementary efforts to sort of get at the same goal.
Okay, so if we don't pass this charter, we don't, it was what, 600? There was a number that was floated that we could have potentially been getting for the 2028.
So there are two different things that touch this special fund. The one, and they're both similar but different. This is one issue let's put off to the side. The other one you're remembering was from the T-bill that deals with the pilot fund.
Yes,
And that deals with 75% of the operating surplus going into this fund. It would be used for the same purpose. It's just these are two different revenue streams that would be going into the same special fund.
okay,
And the Stowe charter would likely yield much more revenue
yes,
than 75% of the operating surplus.
yes, which is to the point I made many moons ago when we all voted on that amendment. We want to be able to give back money to our towns. So this, by passing this, I know we think, oh, we're going to be having Stowe get like special treatment or we're setting a bad precedent. Well, we're in a crisis right now with our town. They can't afford matches for bridges. This is money they could use towards local roads, which could lower property taxes in other towns. So I just wanted to reiterate that there is financial consequences to us not supporting this for all communities, both for their local budgets and their transportation budgets specifically, which we have no solution for at this point. So if you don't like bonding and you don't like raised property taxes, I would support this bill.
Senator Close.
This bill undermines the taxing authority of the state. I completely oppose this bill, and I am sorry, we are not raising transportation money on the backs of visitors to Stowe and Stowe residents. That is an appalling precedent. Transportation money is general state money. It should not be being raised by individuals in Stowe or visiting Stowe or Stowe residents. I am sorry. I think this is, as a former Ways and Meaning, this is really moving to undermine the taxing authority of the state. To allow any town to go to 2% on their own, I have strong objections to, and I even have more strong objections to raising statewide, what should be a statewide solution, just because our governor and our appropriations committees and finance committees have failed to reach a way to sustainably fund our transportation fund does not mean we should be putting it on the backs of Stowe residents and Stowe visitors to raise that, what is a statewide need. So I believe statewide needs need to be funded in a statewide appropriate fashion. And I strongly, I'm sorry, but I was shocked basically voted this out. It is so undermines the taxing authority of the state. I cannot support this.
Senator Bielski.
I just have a question about the 4.9. Is that just the additional 1% or is that the total?
It's the additional 1%. It's the total from the additional 1%.
Okay, and
So split that number into
Yeah.
half. Yeah.
and they said the current 1% is 3.
So that's not my number,
okay.
but we also base in like the inflators in the revenue forecast into our forward-looking projections. And since these are consumption-based taxes that have price sensitivity to them, when all else is equal, they generally grow over time. So it captures the inflationary growth.
Absolutely answered my next question.
Yeah, but that's the ballpark we're playing in, is that's the range. You know, if we have a really bad winter, it might not be quite as good, but
Understood that they're just predictions based on the factors.
So with due apologies to Attorney Devlin, we did kind of walk through it already. I took that upon myself to just read the amendment. And we also had hoped to get through the Williston one, but we are now 5 minutes away from being on the floor. So what is the committee's desire? Do you want to vote this out? Senator White.
Well, I think I'm potentially a lone vote on this in favor of it, but I highly support this charter. I don't think I don't agree with the idea that we're losing state tax capacity or taxing authority. I disagree with that. I don't know what taxing authority we're losing. If anything, what we have seen is chronic inability for towns to be able to raise revenue on their own. And so they've had to basically not be able to keep up with maintenance or not keep up with general work. And I think if a community is dedicated enough and is supportive enough that they put it in their charter and they put it forward to their voters, and they don't have enough money to support the services that we're asking, and we're not supporting those services at the state level, it is pretty inconsiderate to say, no, we don't get the ability to do this. And Stowe is a special place because very wealthy people go there almost exclusively. And the people who shop in Stowe are not the people who live in Stowe or live in the surrounding communities. They shop in other communities. So I don't think it raises the cost of living in any substantial way for those communities. It only allows us to draw down from wealthy people who frustratingly increase the cost of services for everyone else in those communities. So I also think the transportation fund is in desperate need. And anything that we could do to reduce property taxes from being raised because of municipal road costs, the better. So I would be happy to vote on this. Even if it doesn't pass, I would be happy to vote.
Representative Lipsky.
Yeah, thank you again for the record, Jed Lipsky, Loyal One. I just wanted to share a text message I received from Charles Safford, actually,
Oh yeah, you're
prior to coming in this meeting. It is important that Section C of Stowe's charter change bill gets amended, see picture for proposed language. The proposed amendment would ensure the select board doesn't authorize the 2%. The town wouldn't lose the authority to continue accepting the 1% local option taxes currently in place. Meaning we have,
You still got a couple more. Even if it's
but do we need to change the charter to make sure that,
No, I think he's saying
Oh,
keep it in that
Yeah.
direction.
yes, okay.
Think that
No, I'm wrong. You are asking for a change, yeah. To
change the word. Is
Well,
the law.
No, as I read subsection C, if this passes, it supersedes the 1%,
Right.
becomes the 2%. Right. But isn't that the point?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you lose 1%,
That's what
does it, Chris?
Attorney Dodd?
Tim, what, does it mean they lose the 1%? We don't want them to lose their 1%.
This would be, so the option tax, local option tax authorized by this section supersedes any local option tax previously adopted and approved by the town by form. So whether that was
Yeah.
under general statute or in charter, this would supersede that. Anything here.
Depending on how we can fix that. It doesn't undermine everyone.
That's just a legal point.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I
Regardless of what
appreciate
you
that.
do,
Thank you.
we do not, well, thank,
Lose that 1%.
Charles, Safford, who's quite astute.
Okay, just at the chair's prerogative, I wanted to vote this out, but I'm not comfortable just kind of ramming this through. So
Just on that.
I'm going to, put this on hold. And if we have time, depending on how long the floor session is, we'll come back to this today
Mhm.
and take a vote and try to get the Wilson one. I don't know what the rest of your afternoon's like, Tim, but,
Just had to be on the House floor once and then.
okay,
Senate floor.
I'm guessing we have about 2.5 hours left on the floor, maybe 3.
And some of us have conference committees afterward, I think.
Okay. So I appreciate Jed, you coming in. You're a solid guy.
Big
Always good to
honor,
see you.
Senate, and I didn't introduce Chip Ganong, who was a constituent, was his family from Stowe, but he's, here in the building,
Okay.
working with, Lieutenant Governor. So,
Okay. And Chris Root, thank you for your testimony and Tim for yours as well. So we will adjourn for the moment and probably see you later.